So one thing that I definitely wanted to talk about today is this is not just for autism, this is for all children, okay? Because there are some children that may have developmental delays, or there are some children that may not have even been diagnosed yet, but we definitely want to provide that information for each and every one in a strategy. And what I love about our program is whenever we offer an idea or a strategy, it is beneficial to absolutely every child, not just a child with a disability. But what our saying is, what is essential for some is beneficial to all. So one of our strategies may be absolutely essential for your child to be successful in the learning environment, but it is going to be beneficial to every single child. So we're going to be talking about what advocacy is and what the way that we can be an advocate and a voice for our child, and identifying resources that are available to your family. Okay, so what is advocacy? This is where there is that broad word that oftentimes we think of, this is where we have to go and we have to make signs and we have to stand outside and we have to picket and we have to be voiced and we have to be loud. But guess what? That's not always what it is. This is allowing you to be able to go into any environment, whether that be your pediatrician's office, whether that be into your child's school, your child care centers, and just letting them know about your child. That is how you are communicating with them so everybody knows about your child. One of the things that we really love to do is we want to talk about those concerns, but we also want to talk about those strengths. Because there's often times that sometimes all of these untypical type behaviors that we see associated with some disabilities maybe overshadow those wonderful, beautiful strengths that each and every one of us have. And so we want to be able to voice those things. We want to be able to voice our concerns, but we also want to voice our strengths. It's about educating yourself. That is why you're here today. You want to educate yourself, right? You want to learn a little bit more. Taking this position, I learned so much more about just disabilities in itself and inclusion itself than I had learned in years. And so that's one of the things that I love about what we do, is that we are constantly learning and we are learning new information so we can get the word out there to you all and to our educators, and that's educating ourselves. So we are advocating for everyone. And again, it's just having a voice. And then taking advantage of the resources available. Again, if you don't know it's out there, how do you know that you can get it? And how do you know to have access to it? That's one of the things that we're really trying to do with the CHAMP program and with our organization as well. Do you have any questions? Yeah. So one of the very first things that we always recommend for families, educators, directors, is in the early childhood setting, and when you do your well child checkups, we always look at those developmental milestones. Can you all remember going to your well child check and your pediatrician or your doctor was asking you questions about, like, can your child do this? Can your child do that? They were referencing the CDC milestones and Learn the Signs Act early. This is an excellent website. If you are not familiar with this website, I highly recommend that you do this, because this is a way that you can see where your child should be developing, what those milestones are for a typically developing child. Okay, so it also gives information on if that child is not particularly meeting that milestone, what you can do to be able to help them bridge that gap with that milestone. It is a wonderful tool. It is where we will always reference educators to go to have those conversations. And if you have a child in an early childhood setting, they are always going to do a developmental screener. It has yearly, they will do that. And then once you go into the school system, they'll have that as well, okay? So the developmental monitoring, now this is gonna be more specifically starting at that infancy and going through the early childhood, but it will give you the ability to look at your child's development in months and in years and where they should be developing at that point in time. And it'll also give you tips and strategies on what you can do to reinforce those skills. There is also an app that you can download and it will help you monitor this. One of the things that I love about this app, this actually allows you to document things, put notes in there, and it has guiding questions for you as a parent to sit down and talk to your pediatrician about. Another thing that I think this is so important for is going into those IFSP and those IEP meetings where they sit down and they ask you all these questions and you're going, I don't even remember what I wore yesterday. Do you think I'm gonna remember at what age my child took their first step, or all those wonderful things that we always say we are going to remember, but life happens and we just forget. That's the beauty of this app, is there are different things that you can track and you can do in there. So again, when we talk about that very first time that we really start to notice, like, you have some developmental concerns, whether it's yourself or whether the educator, somebody has picked up on something. I often say that, there were a lot of times that you just didn't know what to say, or you just didn't know how to explain yourself. And this is a wonderful way that this will help guide those conversations and will give you those words that we may not have that we need to say to communicate what our concerns are. Again, every bit of this is on that CDC website. Wonderful resource. It also will help lead you on the way to talk to the doctor about those developmental concerns, but also connects you with those early intervention service offices. How many of your children went through an early intervention? If you're not familiar with TEIS, this is a service that is available for birth to 5 years old. Now, one of the things that I definitely want to talk to families about now is TEIS now has an extended service option. What we were seeing is that the overall picture was there was that gap between that early childhood TEIS service and when the children could start the public school system. So yes, the public school system can pick up those services at age 3, but just like you said, that may be limited as to what those services look like.
So, like I said, he can still go, but he can only go from either 8 to 11 or either 12 to 3.
Yes,
So,
and that's really difficult on these working families, right? And so that is one of the reasons that TEIS was like, you know what, we need to do something different because we've got a gap in services.
I'm glad because they good. I like them.
Good, I'm so glad to hear that. Yes.
So is that like a different program outside of school?
It is.
Okay.
So TEIS is Tennessee Early Intervention System. This is for the children who have been identified with a disability prior to the age of 3 years old. Once they are identified with having a disability before age 3, they can qualify, if they meet the qualifications for TEIS, they can receive those services, so all of those therapies and all of those services through TEIS. Before, they had it where those services stopped at 3 years old. But now they have done the extended option. So when you are sitting in those meetings where you're determining if your child still qualifies and if they qualify to go to the school system, they will sit down with you in that meeting and give you that decision. Do you want to go to the school system, or do you want to continue with TEIS? Yes. So this is something that it is fairly new. I believe it rolled out completely it was last year. I cannot remember the date offhand, but yes, it was last year. So this is something that we definitely felt like families were just not fully aware of it. So we're like, we need to get the word out there about this extended option, because this could be a game changer for some of our families. Because we know that we need that intervention and we need those services and we need those supports. But if they are not able, like a working parent is not able to do the half days, or if they don't have that support system that can go and do the drop off and pick up, then they can still continue with that TEIS and get those services available. So one of the things that we were getting into also is that you're going into these meetings to make this decision, but parents didn't know that this was even an option. So here you are having to make that decision in that meeting. So we want parents and families to know that this is available, so you can start thinking about that prior to that meeting. So you can weigh out your options. So you can look at it and say, you know what? I really want to think about this, and I want to have time to sit on it and to process it all.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons that we were really wanting to get that word out there for families. So you can say, hey, I do have choices, and I do have options, and I do have opportunities. So Child Find is connecting families with the local school system. And this is for our 3-year-olds all the way up to 21 years old. So if your child qualifies for services and they continue to qualify for services, the local school system has the opportunity to, you can choose as a family, to continue to receive those services as long as they qualify through their 21st birthday. A lot of families don't know that. So you have the ability, and again, it's all about sitting down as a team and knowing what that evaluation process looks like, that it's a no cost to you. These services are free and available at no cost, all the way to their 21 if they still meet those qualifications. Of course, there are new initiatives and new movement to try to get our kids to where they have different types of programs that are available to them once they get 18 and beyond, so that it's not just that they're repeating their senior year over and over again. You know, that's the way it used to be. Even when I was teaching, we would just continue to give those services over and over through that. But now Jackson-Madison County specifically has developed new types of programs that are available, like transition services and workforce and different things that are available to teach those life skills, to teach those job skills for all of our children and adults with disabilities through that 21 event.
So what's the difference in
IFS? It is an individualized family service plan, is an IFSP. That is going to be all of that early childhood.
Okay.
That is for your little ones. And it is a plan not only for that child, but as the entire family. This is a family. This is what we are going to do to try to work towards meeting those child's goals. Then you would transition to an IEP, which is an individualized education plan. This is going to be more of that educational background that is specific for that child.
Okay.
Where it's not necessarily geared for the family, but the child specifically. Okay. We also have 10-step. If you are not familiar with 10-step, this is a parental and self-advocacy group that is a free resource, and you can actually get information, assistance, all types of videos, anything that you need. It is one of our partners that we like to refer families to, again, because it is a free resource for you. And it's definitely it is meant to help families so that you can get all of the information that you need. It has information about the IEP process. It has information about different diagnoses and disabilities. You can request that they assist you. You can, there are different groups that you can actually say, you know what, I really don't understand this whole process, can you come to this meeting with me? And they have representatives that will do that.
Okay.
Yes, because like you said, you're getting all of this information thrown at you. I was always very careful and cautious at those initial meetings that I broke it down to my families and put it in understandable language. And that is so important. And I think that it is so important as a family that you stop and say, hey, can we take a minute? Can you explain that to me? Again, that's you being that voice for your child. Because this is that information. You're taking it all in. Number one, this may be the first time that you're ever even hearing these things. And like you said, all of these acronyms, like they're throwing out ASD. Well, what is ASD? Like, what does that even mean? Oh, autism spectrum disorder. Okay, now that makes sense to me, but never.
OT and PT, sometimes you're looking at them like, okay.
And not just that, but
which
what,
one is that?
yeah, what do they do in OT? What do they do in PT? OT is your occupational therapy, PT is your physical therapy. Yeah, but just knowing those acronyms, what do those letters even mean? So it's okay to stop and ask those questions, because that is the way that we are going to be that voice for that child. One of the greatest tools that I ever received as an educator was I had an autistic child, and his mom came to every meeting with a flyer about her child. I loved that. I loved that she gave me that, because not only was she there to advocate for him and to tell us a little bit about him, but it built that connection. Like, it made it more than just paperwork. Because I think oftentimes when we go in these meetings, it's all about the official paperwork. But that's not really what the meeting is all about. The meeting is about that child. So we want to know about that child, and I really encourage families to sit down and make a list about, this is my child. He is how many years old? He really enjoys, like my child loves watching Bluey or Peppa Pig, or
He can do these things well at
yes,
home.
because they are going to
He's
ask
not
you.
doing these things
Yeah.
as well.
Yes.
You know.
Yes, and they're going to ask you, the first thing they're going to ask me, tell me a little bit about your child. What are your child's strengths?
And if you really don't have it written down, it's like me going to the doctor and her saying, what's wrong? And I'm thinking,
Yes.
should have made a list.
Yes. So that's one of those things, is just getting that information, thinking about those things prior to that meeting. Because we all know that our child has amazing strengths. There are wonderful talents and beautiful things that our child can do. But being caught in that moment, it's like, so having it written out. So what I would do, when she would come and we would do these IEP meetings, I would keep every one of those, and I kept it in his file, so we can look, okay, this is all about him in 2000, this was all about him in 2001, all about him in 2002, and it was also a way for us to see the progression of all the wonderful things that he has learned and he has succeeded and accomplished within that time frame. I really recommend that for families. Okay, so this is ASHA, which is American Speech Language Hearing Association. So if a child has speech language hearing concerns, this is a wonderful resource that we use to help identify what those speech sounds are, what those language sounds are, and where they should be as far as their hearing. Now, a lot about speech language, if you are not sure, speech would be what looks at like the articulation, which is the way that we pronounce our words, the way that we say our letters and letter sounds, the way that we get those sounds out, and it could be the voice, the tone, the volume, all of those things are speech, okay? Then we have language. Language is the working of the words. things that we primarily look at two different things, which would be your receptive language and your expressive language. A lot of big words that just means your expressive language are the words that you get out. Receptive language are the words that you take in. So if we're talking about we have a deficit in one area, like my child understands absolutely everything I say to him, his receptive language is great. That means he is taking those words, he is taking that information, and his brain is able to process what each one of those things are. He understands it, but he just really has a hard time getting those words out. That would be his expressive language. So that would just mean he is not able to formulate those words or to think of those words or to even produce those words to get them out. This is very typical to have a language disorder with autism. I'm assuming, is it safe to say that most of your children receive some type of speech or language therapy? Yep, yeah. This is probably what they're working on. And it's great to ask them, what is it that you're working on? You know, how can I work on that same thing at home? What are you doing to get him to communicate his wants and needs? One of the things that I get most often, the biggest requests that I get are behaviors. Those are behaviors associated oftentimes with that communication. Because behaviors are a form of communication. You can read loud and clear what somebody is saying without saying a word. You know what we're saying, right? Yeah. A child is communicating. They're hitting something, they're communicating. They're talking to you. We just need to figure out what it is we're communicating. Yeah. So all behaviors are a form of communication. So here are just some FAQs, and it says if my child has an IFSP or an IEP, do they have to be in a separate classroom? No.
Not anymore.
No. And this is what we want families to understand. We need to look at what is the least restrictive environment for your child. The least restrictive environment means where can my child be the most successful without the most supports? I think that you have to do whatever is best as a team to decide what the best environment, learning environment is for your child. And that is a team's decision. That is not one person.
Right. Yeah.
That is the entire team. But you are an active member of that team and have a loud voice in that. A strategy that if you are about to make a transition
That's what we
is
do.
to set a timer. You give those kids a verbal warning because nobody likes that. If it's time for you to go, we have the ability to read the clock and say, you know what, she has really talked for an hour. Our time is up. We have the ability to look at that clock, but kids don't understand that concept. So they need that warning that it's about to happen. I'm not just saying, okay, get out of here. No, we have to be, we're winding things down, giving them that transition warning. Okay, honey, we're about to leave. It's about getting that time. We're gonna leave in 5 minutes. So in 5 minutes, we're gonna go ahead and start to gather. We're gonna tell everybody goodbye. Set that timer on your phone. I have a wonderful visual timer that I love to use. I'll show it to you all in just a moment. And it shows a picture. You can set it, and it counts down the picture, and once it's revealed, it pops the picture out and makes a cute little fun noise for kids. Giving them that transition warning almost always will reduce those behaviors. Have they all talked to you about how the evaluation process goes and what it looks like? Okay, so you have, and I know we're over time, so if anybody needs to leave, feel free to. When you have the early childhood, you should have some type of testing every 6 months to see where your child is developing. When that child gets ready to transition to the school system or that extended option, they are also going to do an evaluation to determine if they meet the state's criteria to receive those services. Once they find an eligibility, that eligibility lasts for 3 years. Okay, once they transition to that IEP, that individualized education plan, that eligibility is good for 3 years. At 3 years, they should do another type of an evaluation, or they can review the old one and say, you know what, this is still appropriate. A lot of things haven't changed since then. Typically, at the younger age, they generally do a new one. But if they think, okay, well, you're autistic, you're always going to be autistic, so does this assessment still meet the criteria for autism? They will do different assessments throughout the year, also to see where they are progressing. So when your child has an IEP meeting, you should be having those yearly. So every calendar year, your child will have to, you will have to create an IEP for your child. And you will sit down as a team and talk about what those child's strengths are, what areas that you would like to work on, and what their present levels of performance are. So that means, what are they doing at this point, and what can we do to improve those areas that we have deficits in? And at that point, those performance levels, that should be done every year. So it's kind of just like, I'm trying to think of like Ames Web or different things like that, those different types of assessments that they do in the school system that's looking at where the progression is. Where do I start if I have any concerns about my child's development? We always say, start with those healthcare professionals. You can always start there. Always have those conversations, being able to talk about those concerns. If you just feel like you are not getting anywhere, you have the right to request an evaluation. You can request that evaluation through TEIS, or you can request that evaluation through your local school system. Depending on the child's age, you have the right to say, hey, I want you to test my child because I really have these developmental concerns. One of the things that is important is that if you need to make a request for an evaluation with the local school system, you need to make sure it is done in writing. Okay? So that is one thing that is very important. TEIS has it all online. You can just do a simple click. I need an evaluation. They will come out, sit with you, meet with you.
It's a great program.
It is a wonderful program, and I'm so thankful it's helping families with that extended option. All right, do I have to have my pediatrician's permission to refer my child to TES or Child Find? No, you do not. You do not have to have their permission to request an evaluation. Now, with that being said, autism, you all had to have a medical professional for that diagnosis, correct? Yes, because it is medically diagnosed, or someone that specializes specifically in autism to do those assessments. So there is that catch-22. You do not have to have their permission to get an evaluation, but you will have to work with some type of specialist, either a pediatrician or an autism specialist, to give you that autism identification. And this is all ways that you are becoming that voice for your child. This is what we're talking about when we talk about advocacy, is educating yourself, connecting with others, voicing your concerns, and talking about your child and your child's strengths.